Hey, welcome everyone to the Innovators Mindset. Excited to have Martin Gibson and Marie Kane on today. They're coming all the way from the UK, so it's about early evening over there. Sun's just setting. So at the end of the day, they're taking time to talk through this. Martin, I might start with you. Just talk to the audience about what you've seen, what challenge you saw as an innovator in the UK, and how have you sort of jumped in and tried to fix it?
Yeah, thanks, Vic. So one of the things that hit us straight away with the COVID pandemic was that there's going to be so many people affected. There are so many new vaccines in development, well over 100 now, well over 50 or 60 new products that are either already tested or in testing from the pharmaceutical industry. And how do you create a platform, a means of testing all of these different drugs, vaccines in a rapidly changing situation? So where actually you can't even get to see the patients very easily. You know, it's not like it was before when we were doing clinical evaluation, clinical trials. We're not even allowed to go close to people. And yeah. So that, how do you run a trial remotely using all of the data and tools that are now available to us and evaluate all of these different things at the same time? And that was the challenge that we really had to face.
Yeah.
And we have. So we've been innovating along those lines.
Yeah. And so talk about your background, your personal background, and we'll pull Marie in. Give me your story. Like, what's your perspective on this challenge?
So my backstory is I'm a clinician. My specialist area is actually endocrinology, and we built a whole load of data systems based around the management of people with diabetes. And we've been doing that for a lot of years. It's a very data-rich group of individuals. And we were able to construct a means of following patients remotely, and then building on top of that, the ability to do research and trials using that kind of access to patient information. Your audience might not know this, but the UK is particularly rich in data around long-term follow-up of patients. So we were able to bring together all of those resources and use them in real time for running clinical trials. So nobody's ever done that before. We were the first.
So it started as you, as an endocrinologist, really treating your patients, and then it has grown from there. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the whole thing came from the ability to see the whole person. So if you take, I mean, quite a lot of people have diabetes or know someone with diabetes, and they'll know that they touch a lot of different people. So they see specialists like me, they see their primary care physician, they see their optometrist, their ophthalmologist, their cardiologist, and so on. All of those people really, to have a clear view and make a safe evaluation and safe judgments on that person's care, need to have the whole picture. And the only way you can have the whole picture is to have a shared electronic information system that captures everything. And so that's where it all grew from. And of course, once you've got that and you've built it for things, not just people with diabetes, but everything, you can use that for all sorts of different stuff, not just direct care, which is where it started from, but research, trials, you name it. And that's what we in Northwest EHealth do.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Now Marie, come in here and explain to us like what you tried to deal with the COVID-19 situation. What was the first thing you tried with that?
Well, actually, again, it came back to what the challenge was. And back in February, we were seeing papers coming out of China and Italy talking about how the kinds of signals they were seeing from the patients there about, particularly in ICU, and which patients were doing worst. And trying to understand that from a data perspective. And we could see that there was a real lack of joined up thinking around this. There was lots of papers coming out very rapidly. And what we wanted to do was try and pull together as much of that information as possible to design a data lake for our locality in Salford in Greater Manchester that was pulling on the best of that information coming out of China and Italy, particularly around pathology results, comorbidities, so that we could see a holistic view of all of the patients who were coming into the hospital with COVID, to enable the clinicians to understand which patients were doing the worst, which were going to potentially get worse, and which patients could be maybe prioritized for discharge. So it would enable the hospital to manage the pressures, but it would also enable clinicians to make rapid decisions. So we've worked on that very rapidly over a period of 2-3 weeks to bring the data set together, working very closely with the business intelligence teams in the hospital and the primary care providers, and then to build a dashboard to enable the clinicians to have this overview.
So it seems like a lot of work in a couple of weeks. I mean, what's a data lake with all of these pieces coming together in a dashboard? Seems like did you sleep at all during the process?
There was a few people who haven't slept for a month or so. So it was an enormous task. And I think it was possible because we have an amazing team of staff, some of whom have been with us since day one. And they understand the NHS data sets. They're without compare. And we have some amazing statisticians and data scientists. We've done an amazing...
It kind of builds on all of the different technical platforms that we built for doing our trials.
Absolutely.
We weren't starting from ground zero, so that was a big help.
Yeah, because we've done a lot of the work before. And actually the technology piece as well is slotted in very nicely for the next phase of what we're going to be doing with our healthcare partners in Greater Manchester. We've got some technology that we developed back in the early days of Northwest EHealth, which is some find and recruit technology. So it enables us to rapidly create queries and identify patient cohorts, which can then be invited to take part in healthcare interventions or clinical trials. And we're going to be looking to deploy a version of that across the health system to enable the clinicians and managers to look at the long-term impacts of COVID and identify patients for shielding or for long-term monitoring, so that they can understand that long-term impact of what COVID means. To your point,
so talk to me about who has it been launched into the health systems or into pharma companies? Is anyone working with you on it now?
Yeah. Back to your early point, Martin's early point about there's so many products, vaccines and treatments needing to be tested at the moment.
So talk about that. Are there really over 100 that need to be tested? I mean, that's wonderful, but it's also a big challenge. It is.
The challenges are many, actually. I'll give you the challenge of the client we're working with, and it's a good example. This large pharmaceutical company have got a product which is already on the market for a different usage, but they want to get a new label for treating the most severely ill patients with COVID. And they've done their trial incredibly rapidly. It's a global trial. But what they need are real world data from the COVID population as a real world placebo arm. But those data need to be of incredible detail and granularity. And they have struggled to find that kind of data available in the quality that we've been able to put together using our technology and our healthcare partners in Greater Manchester. So we're going to be working with them to provide a real world placebo arm. But then we're going to also be working with that client to look at the rest of their non-COVID pipeline and how that may be impacted by the effects of COVID.
Yeah, well, it's a great service that it sounds like you put together sort of in the heat of battle, trying to help hospitals and pharma companies fight against this disease very quickly amount of time. Martin, come in and sort of explain where this could go. Like, what is it going to mean if you can do this more broadly?
So I just go back a little bit to what Marie was saying, just that level of detail that you can get from it. That's what's so attractive about it, because you can track the people all the way from out in the community, all of the results they're seeing at primary care physician, into the hospital, through the hospital, all their pathology results, their scan results, and then back out into the community once they've been discharged to follow them up. Now, that whole journey is telling you about that patient, whether they do well or not. You can stratify on genetics and everything else. So if you can do that for COVID, you can do that for any long-term condition, any condition that, so, another hospital condition similar would be any kind of patient that comes in with a really serious sepsis to hospital.
Yeah.
How do we manage that better? Or a long-term condition.
Yeah, it seems like
with,
all of healthcare could be
a
managed better. I mean,
rheumatologist.
other industries have lots of data
Yeah, so-
and track me over my life. Healthcare doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're coming down to doing trials where you've got to have really high quality information for the regulators and for approval of medicines and track the safety, if you've got a system like the one I've just described, where you're picking up every single item every time that person hits the healthcare system and as they go through it, you don't need to do too much else. It's like following everything in the real world without the need to impose some kind of special extra bit that you might need for trials. And that's always been a handicap for doing standard kinds of clinical trials, is they're really quite clunky. You know, you've got to get the patient in front of you every few months. You've got to do a whole lot of extra blood tests. You've got to do all sorts of things that are very inconvenient usually for a patient and really expensive from the point of view of development. This actually cuts through all that.
Yeah, it seems like it cuts through it. And it's probably more effective at really testing. Is this therapy going to work or not?
And as Marie was saying, you know, with the company we're working with, this allows you to construct control placebo groups in a completely different way to the way that you would do it normally. So you're kind of pulling that data in anyway. Yeah. So you can have multiple comparisons. You can have very flexible, adaptive trial designs. People have talked about doing this for years, but actually we'll have it by doing what we've been doing. We have now a ready-made platform to build all of those things on top of.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. It's really interesting. You know, the COVID outbreak has been really painful for a lot of people and really hard, both health-wise and economic-wise. But it's great to see, you know, I'm here in the UK, I'm in the US talking to the UK, sort of globally, we're all coming together to try to innovate our way out of this. Mm-hmm. And I love what y'all are doing to get answers for the COVID patients right now, but then answers for all patients over time. So thanks for sharing. Really excited to see how it matures. Is there a website that people can go to learn more?
Yeah, if you go to www.nweh.co.uk.
nweh.co.uk.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Marie. I really appreciate it.
That's the one.
Take care.
Bye.